Hi everybody, Wednesday morning devotion. Hope you're in for a great day. We've been talking about the beautiful name Jehovah Rapha, which refers to a God who heals. What a great name, that God has an ability to heal and a desire as well to do the same. Jehovah Rapha. We've wondered in our course of our thinking this last week or two about why we hurt, the purpose of pain. And we've really established a few things. We found that, first of all, we are in pain because of sin. And that's the consequence of sin. We've said we're in pain because of the consequence of maybe somebody else's sin. We said, thirdly, that we're in pain sometimes because pain sometimes leads to the glory of God, because He does His best work in the darkness, sometimes even of our pain. What I want to suggest to you, amongst all of those things, there's two things you need to remember. The first thing I would really like for you to remember today is that some sickness stays. You know, in 2 Corinthians 12:7, we have Paul praying that God would relieve him of some illness or some ailment or some issue that he's going through. And he says, God, I've prayed time after time after time, but you have not relieved me of my pain. What is the problem? I bet you he searched his heart for sin. I bet you he looked for people around him. It might be the consequence. He wondered how this sin could lead to the glory of God, or this pain could lead to the glory of God. But at the end of the day, God answered him so beautifully by saying to him, basically, Paul, the pain, the sickness, the illness, whatever it is, it stays. It stays. And then he says this, but my grace will be sufficient for you. You know, this takes a lot of spiritual pain for those people who have prayed and God has not healed. It takes a lot of our guilt away, because sometimes God says pain is there for a purpose. It's there to stay. It's there to keep you humble, as it might have been with Paul. It's there so that you keep your focus on God. Who knows why God may purpose for pain to stay? But if He should do that, remember this: His grace is sufficient for you. Now remember that grace is not just given so that we get to heaven one day. That's not just about grace. That's wonderful grace. But grace is given so that you can live life every day to the full purpose for which God has ordained for you to live. Grace enables you not just to get to heaven, but it enables you as well to become everything God wants you to be and to do everything God wants you to do. So remember firstly today that some pain, some suffering, it stays for the purpose of God. The next thing is, just remember Hebrews 9:27 talks about an appointment that we all have. An appointment with this thing that we avoid as much as we can, called death. It is appointed once to man to die. And it's an appointment. Some pain, some suffering, some illness will lead to death. Now, we all got to die. That's part of life, isn't it? We all have to die one day. And death is just an appointment with God. God has your days numbered, people. He knows the day you were born. It appointed you to be born. It's appointed for you to die. Everything in between, God knows about it. It is no surprise to Him. Should your suffering lead not just to pain on the long term, but ultimately to death. We all have an appointment with God one day. And I hope that in light of that, maybe you will think about your life today. When you talk about death, if you're a teenager, it's irrelevant. When you talk about at the age of 40, talking about death is academic. But when you get to our age, or certainly my age, you begin to realize it's not far off. It's not far around the corner. And we too will have this appointment with death. It's an irony of situation, because I can't wait to see God, but I also want to stay here. I've got so much to do. But at the end of the day, it's God's appointed time. So remember that today. Remember those two things. Some pain stays, and some pain and suffering ultimately will lead to death. It's not a demoralizing, it's not a miserable thought. It's a glorious one. Think about it today. Cheers, boys. Have a good day.